Welcome to Everyday Economics, the podcast that helps you learn about the economic world happening around you every day. I'm your host, Chris Krug, president of the 501c3 nonprofit, nonpartisan Franklin News Foundation. Everyday Economics, a production of America's Talking Network. You can subscribe to all of our great podcasts at americastalking.com. To support Everyday Economics, please make your tax-deductible charitable contribution by clicking the link in the show description. We are recording this episode on Monday, October 30th, and joining me, as always, the well-rested, very much on the repair and mend, Dr. Orphe Divounguy, PhD economist. Dr. O, you sound silky today. I gotta tell you, for somebody that was battling the COVID, you're like, I don't know, man, on the good side.
I came back, man, as Iron Man.
Yes.
Iron Man, my friend.
Yes, you are the toughest man in the Seattle metro area. Hey, this is a story that I read in the Center Square, which is also part of the Franklin News Foundation. It's a newswire service. The headline on this story is, study, cost of fueling an electric vehicle is equivalent to $17.33 per gallon. I've had a problem with electric vehicles. I think I've shared this with you a few times, simply because of the way that...
You're right.
The way that they're laid into the market, right? I mean, it's not, I get it. It's like if you had some ability to create endless amounts of electricity where it wasn't having an environmental impact, and if you were able to build an electric vehicle that didn't require little kids in third world countries to go down into cobalt mines and to pull out key and other precious materials to build them, geez, wouldn't this be utopian? But in fact, you do. Beyond that is this cost. And so this report says that and this is directly from the story at the Center Square, the complete costs of, quote unquote, fueling an electric vehicle for 10 years are $17.33 per equivalent gallon of gasoline, according to the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Straight from the story, the authors say that the $1.21 cost per gallon equivalent of charging a car, cited by EV advocates, excludes the real cost borne by taxpayers for subsidies, utility rate payers for energy investments, and non-electric vehicle owners for mandate environmental credit-driven higher vehicle costs, which they say total almost $49,000 per EV. And so that those costs should be, the report and the study suggests that those costs should be, and in our story it said must be included when comparing fueling costs of EVs and traditional gas-powered vehicles, as per Texas Public Policy.
Look, the reality, I like the study a little bit. I think the part about the study that is a little bit flawed to me is that they need to look at the types of vehicles that buyers of EVs would have purchased. The types of vehicles that buyers of EVs would have purchased had they not had the incentives. That is the way I would think about something like that. And what are the types of those? What are those vehicles? There's a 2019 study that was published by the couple authors. It's in the National Bureau of Economic Research. Maybe it's now in the journal. But basically, it looked at the types of vehicles that EV buyers would have purchased had they not purchased an EV. And so you're comparing, right? You're really comparing. Okay, what is the stuff actually replacing? The reality is the subsidies, like you said, which, by the way, I totally agree with. EV purchases would have probably been something like 30% lower than they are had they not been subsidized by the federal government, right? And I guess, what are the types of vehicles they replace? Well, they replace vehicles that, are $30,000, $40,000. They are the Honda Accord hybrid, the Honda Accord, some fuel efficient hybrid vehicles, So I guess the big question is, like, even on the environmental front, how much of an emissions reduction do we actually get from EVs if the people who bought them would have bought kind of hybrid vehicles, right? All right, we get a small reduction, maybe not as big as people are making it out to be, And so So that's kind of my thought. And on the price, of course, I think the study's probably spot on. This could be done better. If you were going to design, something, some sort of government subsidy, there's definitely a modified program could do a better job. Right. Ultimately, so that the cost to the taxpayer is not as big as it is right now.
So part of what the story that got into, and again, this was from the Center Square Newswire services, is that Ford, has made this F-150 Lightning pickup truck, and they're actually losing an estimated $70,000 per EV to build it. Because they're receiving subsidies to build these things, and then of course the subsidies passed on to the consumer. But the person who spoke on the survey said that the real cost of a vehicle such as the Ford Lightning is over $150,000. And so at $150,000, you couldn't necessarily buy 3 loaded Ford F-150s new. But I'll tell you what, you could get pretty close. You could get pretty close to buying 3 really nice trucks for the same price that it would cost, and ultimately to build out a single EV Ford Lightning version of the F-150. So I don't know. I mean, actually, I think it's just, I get what's the thrust behind this, but I really feel like the public's being bamboozled. And when you factor in the amount of energy that is required to build an EV, starting at zero, right? A gas combustion engine versus an electric, powered vehicle, it costs far more money and actually has far more environmental impact to build the vehicle before it's used. And that's never factored into the consideration, I think, that most people have, and certainly not part of the discussion that Americans are having around EVs. I don't hate them. I've got dear friends who have them and love them. I've looked at them and I haven't decided no, never. But I just have not. I have not found one that matched up with the things that I wanted at the time that I've been looking. And frankly, it's really maybe in the last 5 years that there's been something competent enough in the market to consider. Certainly, Tesla makes a pretty dependable vehicle, relative to others. But not too many other manufacturers do. Not in a price range that isn't absurd.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, it not just the prices, but ultimately the idea that it's subsidized by federal tax incentives, and if you think about the way this is designed, right, and this is where my problem with this is. It's designed to basically benefit. Let's be honest. High income households are more likely to reap the benefits of the tax subsidy, but they were more likely to be able to buy an EV in the absence of the incentive. Right? It's like you're subsidizing a group that would have bought them anyway. If you were going to do this, then you should be doing it so that lower income households that were going to go buy a gas guzzler end up getting the credit to be able to go and buy an EV. Right. And so just the incentive structure is a little messed up. It's the way that the program is designed is a little messed up, and it ends up costing way more to taxpayers than it ought to. And that's where my problem is with these subsidies, because ultimately I would love to see a world where, every car we buy is not a crazy gas guzzler. I mean, look, when oil prices soared and we started seeing gas prices increasing like crazy, look, low income families were hurt the most. You can't fill up, you can't go to work. And so I'd love to see a program that's geared at helping lower income families, rather than actually wasting the dollars on families that would have bought an EV anyway because they can afford it.
Well, I appreciate your thoughts on it. It's a good discussion. It's, that's a story that I think that needed to be written. It was great to see it from the center square. And I saw a bunch of other outlets pick up on that same reporting, I think, that broke, frankly, at the center square. So terrific conversation, Dr.
They're
O.
doing a good job. They're doing a good job over at the center square.
You are the man. For Orphe Divounguy, this has been Chris Krug. Subscribe to Everyday Economics and dozens of other quality podcasts at americastalking.com.